Again, from the top, with no Beth Cordello here today, as she off gallivanting at a volleyball match. I am joined, though, by our very own Greg Farrell, not Farrow. Greg, how many times have we had that?
It's been many, many. It's brothers by a different mother.
There you go. And you are recently... Retired. 2 days in, playing some golf, and you are my longtime golf partner.
Yep.
For everybody that's watching, Greg will be coming with me. And how's your golf game?
It's improving by the hour.
I love it. That'll make us win a few more tournaments this year. But Greg, why don't we start by having you explain a little bit about yourself, your background, and what is it that you have been doing for a number of years here in your career?
So, Brad, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this. It's an honor. I always love what you guys do. You're a great firm, and when I got the invite, I was extremely excited.
We always love positive feedback.
There you go. I am recently retired from being a investment advisor / wealth manager. I was at a firm called Howell & Russling, which was 95 years in existence right now. It's one of the oldest firms, if not the oldest firm in Rochester. Downtown, we were downtown, and then they recently moved over to the Culvery Armory. But with all that said, I'd been there approximately 8 years, and then had been at various banks prior in trust departments, which is about where I got introduced to you guys,
yep.
Working with Jason Livingston, et cetera, and then through you, and then some golf tournaments, et cetera. But got to know a lot of your team, which again, I can't say enough about the team, and I always talk about it because you really are a great firm, and it's you're focused, and even though we're here at Focus Management, the firm is focused. So it's always good to have a partner like that, so that in my work for many years, probably the last 20 has been in the investment world, and probably the last 15, give or take, that we've known each other. I always make referrals to my clients, and the reason being is because the clients that I work with usually have some wealth, but ironically, they don't take care of the other parts of their life, like their will, like any other things for estate work. And so they need a good attorney firm to help them out along the way. And Jason primarily has been a great ally in that regard. So, I mean, that's what we've been doing. I've been doing for the last 20 years. Before that, I was in the banking and finance world. I actually worked in agricultural finance for 20 years. So I got to see...
it was a growing business.
Growing business. Mm-hmm. Look at you.
You like that one.
But I got to see a lot of the countryside from Presque Isle, Maine, where my firm, I used to work for a division of ConAgra Foods. I had a plant out to Ohio and down to the North Carolina shores, and just worked that up and down. And I was the finance arm. So when farmers needed money, I would be the one, their banker, if you will, and worked with farmers. And it was an interesting line of work from a kid that grew up in northern New Jersey. Father worked in Manhattan. I first got into the farm credit system. I got a lot of people looking at me kind of cross-eyed saying, a Jersey boy, well, where's
you got Jersey cows.
There you go.
Those
exactly,
are
exactly. So it's been a varied career, if you will, with a lot of different background, a lot of volunteer work in between, a little bit of golf here and there, coached everything from under the sun, including a little bit of time as assistant coach, track coach at a local high school. So got a lot of different experiences, which in a way, and I also owned a small business of my own, which helps with working with entrepreneurs, business owners, and with people with wealth, because you get the variety background that I had helped, as opposed to being focused.
How do people meet or get to know? I mean, I think a lot of people like wealth.
Yeah.
They'd love to manage it, but I don't know that most know how to find a wealth manager, financial advisor, financial planner. Who are the right people to look for or to get something?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is difficult. There's a ton. I can't even tell you the amount of advisors there are in Rochester. There's people with the big firms like Merrill and Morgan and all that, and then there's literally mom and pop, so to speak, or small shops that have 2 or 3 people in them. They don't manage a ton of money, but they just do a little job for a couple people, enough to, if you will, generate an income for them by doing that. So, but it's difficult. You will go online, and right now Fisher is a big name. You always hear that. But
they got a lot of commercials.
They have a lot of commercials, but they're a factory, really. Anytime that you can spend that kind of money, you have to be able to afford that. So you're going to charge certain prices for certain things. But at the same point in time, to get to know or understand how to get a wealth advisor, the challenge is a lot of it is word of mouth. And, so it's cocktail party talk, and of which a lot of people don't like to talk about their money.
Right.
I mean, it's just, it's one of those taboo subjects. I remember my father talking to me, he said, if you have a beer here or there, don't, talk religion, don't talk politics, don't talk money.
Right.
Well, that's one of my professions, so that was a hard thing. And then politics works its way always into conversations about wealth and about money management, because people are just concerns about whatever administration's in control. But so I've got to talk about those things, but in order to find the right person, it's really you got to be able to listen to other people. Mm-hmm. If you can get somebody to guide you, that's great. But listen to other people, see their experience, and it's really a relationship. We have a great relationship, and it's really just, does somebody listen to you? Right. And if they listen to you, they're going to act in your best interest.
When should somebody try to find a wealth planner and financial manager? I work with we've hired a lot of younger attorneys over the years. I was a little fortunate. I had started out in a trust and estates practice. Right. I got introduced to a number of financial advisors. So that did put me on a fast track, but I see colleagues or people that we employ, and they do not. When do you think that somebody should start planning for their future?
Well, immediately, but, the real challenge is back in the 80s when there was a change in the way that people save for retirement. Used to be you had a pension a long time ago, and you worked for the company for your 30 years. You got a watch? I got a watch for my retirement.
Nice watch.
It is a nice watch. But you worked for the company, you retired, you got your pension, everything was good. You didn't really have to worry about anything. When companies started to get to the point where they couldn't fund their own pensions anymore, the 401k Act came out, and people started saving on their own. That changed everything because, one, people in my world, for the longest time, couldn't manage or help because it was against regulations to advise somebody about their 401k. Mm-hmm. So people were literally on their own. The government wanted the 401k program to succeed because it took the burden off of them. Plus, it also helped them with the Social Security system because there would be a supplement, other than people having to rely solely on that. But people had to save. But when the wealth advisory world couldn't be actively involved in helping and managing that was a real challenge. Now, some of those laws have changed, and we're able to now talk to people about their 401k. We don't get paid for it. So that's the other challenge is so where is that gray line? Do you work with somebody that you're not going to get paid for? And you've got to be able to draw that line and think, is there an opportunity here that down the road, that eventually when they roll out their 401k, let's say they move to another job, that you can be involved. But you got to create that relationship. So it's a dicey world trying to figure out when to start. Some of the basic stuff obviously is with the 401k. Most 401k programs are mutual fund and or ETFs, exchange traded funds, which are usually passive. They follow an index like the S&P. Those are things I always encourage people to do. And, I've got 3 daughters from 40 to 34, and they all successful business people or, work for companies on their own. I've always encouraged them to participate in any program that they have at work. And fortunately for them, too, there are Roth programs.
Okay.
So
What is a Roth?
So a Roth program is a 401k, or you can have it as an IRA on the side. But you put your money in where you've already paid the taxes on it. So it's just like taking your paycheck and then writing a check from your checking account because you've already paying taxes. Taxes have been withheld. You put it into this Roth account. Now, there's limitations on how much you can put in each year and how much you're making, but in a Roth one company sponsored, none of those limitations work. And most employers now offer a Roth option to their 401k program. It's a great thing because what happens is all the growth, and you're never guaranteed growth, and I learned that for 20 years of being able to cover my backside.
Lawyers make sure they tell
exactly.
you exactly.
Lawyers are somewhat involved in that, but growth, all the growth in that is tax free.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, if you start investing when you're 25 years old, and you get up to my age in the 60s, you can have a very, very big nest egg. Probably $1 million or more, and none of that will be taxed when you take it out. That has significant opportunity.
People forget about those taxes. Uncle Sam
it's crazy.
He's a greedy piglet. He really likes to make sure he gets paid.
And we're right in the middle right now. The timeliness of this depends, but we're right in the middle of a budget negotiation with the administration, and there might be an extension. It sounds like we'll see an extension of some of the tax cuts that took course in 2017. Well, right now we're in one of the most favorable tax brackets that have ever existed, and if those get extended, those are great opportunities for people to take advantage of it. And even if they have a regular IRA, and a regular IRA, regular 401k, is the money comes out before taxes.
Right. But then you get taxed later.
But you get taxed when you take it out.
Uncle Sam always gets paid.
And I'm at that level right now. The first day of retirement yesterday, went for a nice walk with my wife. Then the second, before I played golf, the second duty.
A lot of walking.
I was. The second duty was, how am I going to pay myself for the next 30 years? Right. Not that I hadn't thought about this, but then I put it to pencil and had the budget worked out and try to figure, okay, where's it coming from? And I have a Roth, I have regular, IRAs, and Social Security is coming in about a month. So you got to work all those angles together. But I'm looking at the IRA/former 401k and saying, I don't really want to touch that because I'm going to get taxed on it. But I don't want to touch my Roth either because that has other opportunities for inheritance reasons.
Right.
So there's a whole...
So the wealth management world, what you're describing, I guess, for young people versus older people, an advisor helps you deal with when to start, how to pull it, talking to them about how to transfer it to create that concept of generational wealth. Why doesn't everybody have one of you?
I wish I had the answer. I may, probably either could have retired a lot earlier.
Well, that's a great question.
Or continue.
How did your income get generated over the years? I think a lot of people might be... There's another set of commercials, we won't name them, but they're like, oh, you don't need the advisor because they just charge you a fee.
Right.
How does the advisor get paid?
So the advisor gets paid typically if you hire an advisor. There's two methodologies. There's a broker, which will charge you per transaction. So if you want to buy a stock, they will charge you a fee to do that. And the more you do, the more fees you have. But that's it. It's a one and done. It's kind of a commission story.
But you're kind of on your own picking those stocks.
You are. The advisor might give you a hint here or there, but there's regulations around them directing you into something.
Just watch the movie Wall Street.
Exactly.
Right. Don't do that.
A wealth advisor, which I was also a fiduciary. Fiduciary meaning you have to act in the best interest of somebody. And I always told people that I would work with was, you got to tell me everything. Because if I don't know everything, I can't act in your best interest. If you're going to keep a little secret here on the side, and I don't have to manage that. Somebody else can manage it, that's fine, but I need to know about it because I want to be able to give you the best advice.
Right.
And part of that advice obviously includes the allocation, meaning how much risk can you handle? You know, in April, a couple months ago, when Liberation Day happened and the tariffs were going through the roof and nobody knew what was going on, the market was crashing. And I was getting calls left and right. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? I said, what did we do during the pandemic? We sat tight because these things will work themselves out, theoretically speaking, over time, that it always has worked that way. And it's not the end of the world. And theoretically, if it was, well, it wasn't. So be that as it may, but you have to know where your client is. You have to know, you have to advise them, how much risk can you really take?
When would you recommend they take more risk versus less risk?
Oh, obviously, the younger you are, you got to be all in. You know, it's like just pushing it into the table. There's no reason not to, because in the investment world, a long-term investor is anybody who has a horizon more than 10 years. And they say that because over 10 years, cycles happen, business cycles happen. So you can have a recession, but then you can have a recovery. And over those 10 years, you've got enough time to make it back. As you get later in life like me, you might not have as many longer periods. Now, I still look at my money that I'm going to have it for another 30 years. Most people think...
Because you play a lot of golf. You're doing a lot of walking. Exactly. It's good for you.
Plus, I have a 97-year-old mother and a 91-year-old father. But with all that said, all our clients before, we would do plans for them, projecting what would happen. Here's how you're going to pull your money. What bucket are you going to pull the money from? But at the end of the day, we're working to 100, age 100. That's what we're planning for. And if you kick the bucket sooner, which the odds are you probably will, but if you do, you still got plenty of money. And it's just how to resource that. But as you get older, you want to be able to have certain buckets that you can pull from. I've always been a big advocate of bonds. Now, a young person doesn't need bonds because bonds will only give you what the coupon or the yield is. Yep. So let's just say it's 5%. Well, I'm comfortable with 5%. Inflation right now is around 2.3, 2.4. I'm covering the inflation. A 5% yield on a bond gives me that security, but I can have a bunch of assets over here in the stock market. But when the stock market goes down, I don't want to be taking money from there. I'm taking it from the bonds because it's only 5%. Stock market, I'm looking at a piece of paper here. The last few years have been crazy. I mean, we had 30% returns, 25%. I'd much rather take money from that 5% pool. If this one dives, it's still got a chance to just take off like heck, and that's where wealth gets built. So
going back though, I think I cut you off before you explained how you get paid because I think
I'm sorry.
For me, when I was younger, I had somebody that I started working with. I've known a lot of you guys. It helped to structure things. And I think that people go, I can go plan this out. And sure, you could. It will just take you an insane amount of time. And when life hits, people just don't do it. So I think the purchase price, which for lawyers, we have that, shocks people or concerns them, even though they don't know about it. How do you make your fee? Is somebody opening up the wallet and handing you a 20? I mean, how do you get paid not on the broker's side? Hopefully more.
So advisors get paid on a percentage of assets under management. Yep. It's called AUM, assets under management. And so if somebody who's, let's say, has $1 million, and I'll just use a round number, let's just say it's 1% that we charge somebody. That money, that fee comes out of the account quarterly. So a quarter of that each, quarter percentage comes out each quarter. They never have to write a check. They never see anything. And then when we show them their returns, when we do a sit down with them, not only are we take out our fees. So that meaning that's included in the net number that you're seeing is our fees have already been paid. So if you got a 7% return and we had charged you 1%, you really got 8% return, but in reality, you get 7%. And that's what we show individuals is that 7%. But that's how most firms get paid, is from a percentage of fees or percentage of assets.
You're incentivized, though, to make them money.
Well, exactly.
The more they make, the more you make.
Yeah.
That's the fiduciary concept.
The firm that I just retired from just crested $2 billion in terms of assets under management, and kudos to them. And when I had joined, they had just crested $1 billion. So in 8 years, they got from $1 billion to $2 billion. Obviously, they're going to make more money, but at the same point in time, they've also hired a bunch more advisors. And so they're using, they're not getting greedy and saying, well, we're making all that differential and putting a lot of work on people's shoulders that were already there. They hired more people. And so when you get to working with an individual, you also have to understand, yes, they have to get paid.
Right.
They have to get paid because they are providing a service for you. I will tell you that the firm manages a lot of my money, and I have, I'm truthful. I tell them I have some money on the side, but the money on the side I have at a major house, Fidelity, and I also have some at Schwab. But those are the two major custodians out there. I would tell you that the assets available to the retail user, me, for those monies that I have there, are not very good. And I'm not putting down those firms, but they're not the tool set that an advisor firm will spend the money on to have all these extra tools to do performance reports, to show you different nuances of how you're making money. Here, it's all on your own back. Right. You got to figure it out. I have some bonds in the fund, or not even in a fund, individual bonds. I don't even know when they mature. I mean, I have a scratched piece of paper, but I have to keep track of that. Whereas an advisor, they know when it's coming up. They're going to reinvest that for you. Or if a stock is starting to get a little funky, they know when to get rid of it. Whereas you may be too late to the party. So that's where the help is.
I would be remiss if I did not ask Beth's favorite question. So I've got to make sure that I get this in here on her behalf. I hope Beth's doing well. How did you find working with lawyers? I mean, it's a show that tries to focus on the business and the financial relationship. What's been your experience working with lawyers? What are things that you recommend to clients? What are things that, it's a multi-part question, by the way. So how would you recommend, or when do you tell people they should go talk to an attorney?
Those 3 daughters I mentioned to you, I've told them all to talk to attorneys. I have one in Ohio that Jason gave me a referral for. One is in Buffalo, who's already used Jason, and one's in Carolina, and I gave her a referral down there. They're young. I mean, they're in their 30s, but at the same point in time, they should be talking to an attorney. They should be having a will out there for sure. And why? And why? Basically, because they have children now.
Right.
And so that complicates things a lot, because you have to have a progression that if something happens to you, and if you're married, a spouse, who's going to take care of the child? And what's going to happen to your assets? Do you want the state to get involved, or do you want to make sure that there's guardians in place? Do you want to make sure that there's maybe a trust fund set up that will come out of your testamentary trust, that comes out of your will? That's where the attorneys are involved. I could talk about that stuff, but the attorney brings it into focus, so to speak. But it's important that they have a relationship with an attorney. It's a team thing, and we encourage them day one. Do you have a will? Or we did. I formally did. Do you have a will? If you don't, you got to get on it right away. Oh, I will. No. You need to do this. And
it leaves a mess.
Yes,
you're not there to fix it.
No.
You're gone.
And unfortunately, either we over the course of time had acquired accounts that maybe the brother-in-law said, hey, maybe his brother died and his wife was involved, obviously, and they didn't have a will or something. Well, we get involved in a lot of different. We had gotten involved in a lot of different situations, and it's sad sometimes. It's really sad that one, maybe a spouse didn't know everything that was going on. But
that's a big problem.
That is a big problem.
Business owners don't like to include the spouse, but then the spouse has unreasonable expectations.
and it's just, yes. And on top of that, it's just not healthy at the end of the day, because somebody is going to die.
Correct.
And
Like taxes.
and the taxes may be putting them to their grave. But with all that said, there's going to be, they need somebody at their side. The attorney can help them, obviously, will help them. And then the advisor gets involved too. So it's a joint effort. Jason and I worked on a case recently. Now I had a client who passed. He was sick for a long time, and God love him, but he still had tons and tons and tons of stuff from another attorney firm that I ended up talking to the spouse and saying, you should be talking to Jason right now, because it was so complicated from the other end that we brought it over to Jason. And Jason, it took Jason some time to get through the weeds on what was going on here, but he fixed it, and the spouse is more than happy. And now her daughter and son-in-law are working with him. And it's important. It's important that you have that relationship with the attorney.
Well, I don't want to eat up too much of your time because I need you to go get better at your golf game, because I think I've got some tournaments I got to call you about here coming up. But if there was a summary kind of takeaway for, say, somebody in their 30s or in their 60s, is there ever a wrong time to reach out and work with a financial wealth management advisor?
Never. And I would recommend it right away. Again, a lot of it is word of mouth. I haven't figured out what the next stage of Greg is. I don't know if there will be, but there might be not so much podcasts, but maybe writings.
Okay.
Of which where I might end up, because I think that's
you got a lot of experience.
I do,
there.
And that's a need, because I noticed it with my daughters. The need is that the young people coming into the workplace and not knowing what to do.
Yeah, it's surprising.
And if you could just guide them, just tell them what to do.
Professional schools, nobody ever brings this to your doorstep. Yeah, no. Here, I'm going to let you out into the world, and good luck.
Yeah.
Godspeed. All the best to you.
Right.
And then, you don't develop that wealth, and you wonder how and why.
Right.
Too many years goes by.
But it's a world, unfortunately, where, like at our firm, we had a $500,000 minimum to get in the door. And we took less than that, but that was if we saw opportunity coming down the road. So that's the other challenge, is that firms like ours, we have, got to put a roof over your head. And how do you do that?
Right.
And you just can't take somebody on that's got maybe $10,000, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. No, that's significant, and that will grow over time. It's how do you get involved and give that advice?
It's like growing. I mean, you're going to go to banks and a lot of other opportunities. I think that for individuals, my experience is you have to go and reach out.
Yes.
Find somebody, help you get going. And sometimes you have to change, and you kind of move up to maybe the major leagues, so to say, with more services. But I want to thank you, Greg, for coming here today. I hope that golf game keeps getting sweeter. Short game's amazing. So we will be in touch soon.
Thank you so much, Brett.
Thank you.
I wish Beth was here, but thank you so much.
Yeah, she's watching volleyball. Well, as always, like, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies. 6-minute increments. Have a great day.